Welcome to the Military Transition Podcast, Human Resources Pathfinder Series, where we share invaluable human resources career insights and HR tips and tools tailored specifically for the veteran community. I'm your host, Misty Moreno. I served in the Air Force for 20 years and retired in 2020. I'm the marketing manager and content creator for Vets2PM, and now I mentor veterans just like you through the military transition. In today's episode, we have the privilege of hosting Kevin Flores, a results-driven human resource management officer with over 20 years of experience. Kevin has supported the welfare of 30,000 employees, provided advice on personnel matters, including healthcare administration, and served as a talent and development advisor for 30 senior leaders. He achieved a 99% engagement rate among 600 employees through strategic initiatives and maintained accurate personnel records, ensuring regulatory compliance. Kevin received an AA+ rating from a Third Party Audit for his strong communication skills. He is dedicated to helping service members transition to the civilian workforce. Join us as we explore Kevin's transition journey, his experiences and insights in HR, and how he leveraged a vacancy at his company to achieve a meaningful, lucrative post-service career. Let's dive in. Well, Kevin, from F.E. Warren to now, 20 some odd years ago, welcome to the show. Why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Good morning, Misty. Thank you for having me, and good morning, vets. My name is Kevin Flores. I am a career field personnelist in the United States Air Force. I served 24 years active duty. I started at F.E. Warren, like Misty said, ended my career in Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've touched just about every aspect of personnel. I would like to say my baby is operational planning and readiness. Love that type of stuff. I ended my career as a master sergeant in the Air Force. Funny enough, setting up COVID vaccination sites and running kind of reporting instructors for that. So if you dealt with this, I apologize if it was a mess, but if it wasn't a mess, that was us.
Yeah, right.
And I transitioned October of 2022 and am now currently a human resource management business partner for a manufacturing branch called FGF Brands, based out of San Antonio, Texas. And then by my background, I'm currently on PTO, but I'm broadcasting from Colorado at the moment. But yes, I do HR. First job out of there was talent advisement, and we can kind of dive into that if you want. But that's me in a nutshell.
That's awesome. Well, we have to tell the audience how we know each other. So it's funny because I think maybe a year ago or so, I saw, a Kevin Flores on LinkedIn. Maybe it was in a comment or something. And I immediately was like, is that Kevin from F.E. Warren? And so I went to F.E. Warren, I think in 2000. Yeah, September 2000. And, you had already been there. We were both personnelists. I remember you being a senior airman, and we played basketball together. What do you remember?
Wow, that's taking me back. I do remember the horse stable buildings and sitting in those dormitories, those one-room dorms without kitchens. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, yep.
Concrete, brick. Yes, we did work caddy corner. The building was cool. I remember it was really snowy. And I think most of the activities that I remember have to do with basketball, like you said. We played, and I think we beat the best team on base that year. A lot of that was good times. The career field changed, the Air Force changed completely, and yes, small world. As soon as I saw your picture, it's funny. When I went on LinkedIn, I saw you and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that's Misty.
I know, it's crazy.
I had to reach out.
It's crazy. It's just a really good testament to, network and, relationships and stuff like that. And so, I always looked to you when I was a young airman, like, oh, he's a senior airman, and it's craziness because we both ended our careers, in the personnel career field, which is not really known for now. There's not really a lot of career personnelists out there. So Kevin and I were both in the Air Force, and we were human resources by trade. I know for the Army, it's like S1. For Coast Guard and Navy, it's yeoman. But yeah, so we were human resources, and now look at us. We're both, educating the veteran community on human resources and living our best life. So it's so great to connect with you, and it's honestly really heartwarming to know that you did well. I just think that I truly believe that your first duty station shapes how you view people, how you view the career field. And even though I was only at F.E. Warren for a short period of time, like Lane Wagner, you remember him?
Oh my God, I love Lane.
Melanie
Yes.
Porter, yeah.
Yes, Mel.
Martin Patterson,
Oh yeah.
Jeff Sanders,
Ty
like,
Ingles.
yes, Ty. Just so many good people that were kind of where we ended our career, right? They were Janet Bassey was my first supervisor in the military, Tech Sergeant Janet Bassey. I'll never forget
Yeah.
her because she just really kept it real, and her. So
Absolutely. And I'd be remiss not to say Chief Master Sergeant Jeff Gilbert, who was like my
yes.
first mentor. Love the guy. If you see this, Jeff, hello. Good
Yeah, and
stuff.
I think that's a really good sort of segue into, look at us now. And so now,
Yeah.
we've gone through the Air Force. I retired after 20, you retired after 24. And now we're here to help veterans. So we both went into human resources after the military. And I would like to know sort of how you started your military transition. Let's educate the veterans on some things that you did prior to retiring that benefited you, in your civilian career.
Okay. Well, my transition was probably a lot like others. I would be remiss to say that I wasn't full of anxiety and fear and all of the dread that comes with the unknown, right? Um, I did some research. I took TAP super serious. I took it twice. I wanted to make sure everything was good to go. And I absolutely fell into the pitfalls that they say not to fall into because you don't know any better. And though you can comprehend and understand what those things mean in a meeting setting, doesn't necessarily translate to how you're going to react to life outside
Yep.
of this. So I took it upon myself to kind of let the dust settle. I applied for a skill bridge position. Did not think I was going to be in the HR career field. I had a little bit of curiosity coming out. This is my opportunity to do things I've wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going to school and I took a boot camp on IoT, which is the Internet of Things.
Yep.
Um, I learned C++ coding and rapid prototype development and how to use CNC machines and manufacturing, and this type of environment was really, really, really like amazing to me. So I had that opportunity. I retired, did my retirement ceremony with friends, family that I loved, and was looking for a job in the C++ IoT world. Um, Life happened, and I was taking my resume, adding that type of stuff to my resume, but also for some reason I had this little HR resume on the side. Okay.
Yeah.
And I will say that I did pay for a resume to be accomplished for me, which I don't know how you feel about writing, Misty, but I love writing. And for me, I think it was money not well spent
Yeah.
because I later came to find out that I'm really good at writing resumes.
Mm-hmm.
But I would apply for IoT positions, C++ positions, and just like anything else, the marketplace wants seasoned, experienced people,
Yeah.
and and really in that space, it's all about networking. So I relied really on the schoolhouse to try to help me find a position. Now, I wasn't like clawing and tearing to find a job at that moment, but I needed it for my sanity and for my stability and to know my family was going to be good. Who knows what the retirement paycheck's going to look like? You could run that calculator a billion
Yeah.
times. Who knows what your VA disability rating is going to be?
Exactly.
Everything's up in the air. Um, I landed up looking for remote positions, taking one thing that I found very, very interesting in the marketplace is the amount of interviews that you will do.
Yeah.
It's it's mind-boggling, right? And I
Yeah.
think a lot of it is based upon. I don't want to jump forward and say like how we can better HR as a whole, but we'll go through a telephone interview, and
Yeah.
then that telephone interview turns into a one-on-one with the manager or a one-on-one with the HR manager. Or funny story, I actually applied for a position at the energy company in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I had just bought a suit. Okay, so I am not a suit wearing type of person, although I do like fine dining and stuff like that. I'd rather just wear a button down or a polo. But anyway, so I took it upon myself to buy a suit, and I was getting ready for this interview. It was tailored perfect, great. And I had grabbed the suit out of the closet and put it on, and noticed it had been a little tight, and I was like, "Wow, I'm not
It's a
doing
lot of fine
PT now."
dining out there.
Right. Am I gaining weight? I was like, yeah, I'm obviously gaining weight. So I go to this interview, and it is a board, right? There's 4 people in the room and one on Zoom. And it was about an hour and a half long. We went, tooth and nail through the resume. Uh, it takes a little bit of time to learn the civilian sector language, right? So when we talk about organizations and break it down between groups and wings and directors, and all that needs to be translated. So the interview can take a little bit longer just to explain yourself and try to get the correct verbiage so they understand where you're coming from. With all that being said, uh, interview goes well. Get in my car, go home, get a call from my human resource recruiter. He's like, amazing. We love it. You'll hear from us soon, right? I get home and I notice that my suit has the Air Force emblem on on the coat.
Oh.
And I was really struggling with getting some of the lint off, and there were strings where I had taken the stripes off of my service dress. So I was wearing my
Oh
service
my
dress
gosh.
coat in my interview. Talk about non-attention to detail, your nerves being too much, and I'm sure they're sitting there thinking like, wow, this guy really squeezed into this
Yeah.
this coat. So I will say that things do happen. I know that I don't think that's common, but I think there are some pitfalls within that transition that it's going to be okay.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely. So what did you do as far as like education, certifications,
Oh Lord.
filling any of the knowledge gaps, so I know you said you went to TAP and stuff like that, but as human resources professionals, we know the value of a degree when it comes to, basic and preferred requirements. We know the value of certifications. I always like to say competence will equal confidence, and confidence will equal success, whatever your definition of success is, right? So, let's talk through what did you do to prepare when it comes to education, certifications, in order to even get that interview?
So I was looking through a lot of job descriptions, and human resource management or human resource as a career field um, is vast, right?
Yeah, yeah.
When we're in the
So
Air Force,
diverse.
it's
Yep,
huge. We're looking at equal opportunity, which in the Air Force has its own office. We're looking at
yep.
SARC has its own. We're looking at legal. We're looking at mental health. We're looking at being maybe 8 or 9 different things to a company, and
Yeah,
you
like
don't
training and
really.
development, recruitment, talent
Yes,
acquisition, benefits compensation, compliance,
diversity and
safety,
inclusion.
yeah, diversity and inclusion. I mean, equal opportunity. I mean, we could go on, and depending on the organization, big or small, will determine, do you do one thing? Are you a generalist, or are you a specialist? I mean, it's craziness, but go on.
It
It's
it
just so
is.
much. So that's why it's simple to translate military experience to human resources, because there it is so diverse.
It is. It is, and you don't realize it unless you do the homework, unless you've actually worked it.
So you looked
what
at
I
job postings.
Yeah, job postings, job descriptions, but even that can be tricky because
Hmm.
when you're looking for human resource management, do you know what it means to be a generalist? Do you
Yeah.
know what it means to be a business partner? Sometimes the words human resources won't even be involved in it. You'll
Nope.
have talent advisement or learning and development or something like data input, right? It's a litany of things that you have to relearn. You may already know and call it something else, but you will have to relearn. The way I did it was kind of trial by fire. I would do what was recommended. I would look at the job description, try to place myself into that position. And it wasn't until maybe my third or fourth interview that I thought, I'm not hitting this. There's
Yeah.
something missing, right? I landed up reaching out to a couple of people within the HR career field, and they gave me some good advice. One being Zuleika Reyes, amazing human resource person. But um, they said, what specifically in HR do you want to do? I would recommend you look that up first. Do
Ooh,
you have
good.
any experience in doing this? Right? And are you willing to take a lesser role to spin yourself up for a future role? And I thought that was amazing advice. I see a lot of people go on LinkedIn, regardless of rank or title, and they will shoot for the stars, which is
Yeah.
cool. But I'll also
All the power
see,
to you.
yeah, great. But I'll also see those same people take a step back and say, this wasn't for me, and not realize what exactly it is.
Yeah.
So I
Or
thought that
those
was
same
interesting.
people not getting a job and complaining that no one wants to hire veterans and whatever it may be. I think you and I had the same sort of pathway to the civilian sector. We both, at first was like, all right, hold on, let's take a step back. Let's learn this language. Let's learn this career field. Let's see if we even like to do this, because leading people in the military when you have compliance on your side, your rank, your authority, and essentially the UCMJ is very different than leading people in the civilian sector when, yeah, you really can't make people do anything,
You
right? So,
you cannot.
no,
It,
yeah,
it becomes a massaging, empathetic, I'm on your team type of thing. Yes, for sure. But I will say that, that advice was great. Another piece of advice I got was Kevin. It was from Mr. Shedrick Burke, a career personnelist as well. In fact, he designed or helped design the Man per Bee system. So he's
oh
a little
gosh,
bit,
yes,
yes, he's a little bit older. Amazing person though.
yes,
Um,
yep. I knew his
he,
name
he
sounded familiar. Okay,
yes. So he
ding
sat me
ding
down and
ding.
said, Kevin, you've always been outside the box. You've always had the ability to sit back and take what people say and kind of provide a perspective and don't change, right? Rank, title, and all that will come. That stuff doesn't matter. Be who you are unapologetically, and it will happen. So that was probably the biggest thing. I took a step back and thought about what I can offer and then what I didn't know, and be honest with yourself. And I was really honest with myself. So I went from Albuquerque, moved to San Antonio, where the benefits for veterans is
Yeah,
off the chain, right?
yeah, absolutely. I don't
You
think you
can't
can
get,
really get any better.
it's hard to compete. I mean,
Yeah, it's hard.
people will live through that weather to have those benefits.
Yep.
Um, so I landed up taking a lesser position, and not just a lesser position. And I don't mean to say this as like uh, a way to like demean, because it's not demeaning. This is, for me, was a learning opportunity. I took a position that was almost entry level, not necessarily. So maybe a step above at entry level. And I took a position that had a different shift hour, right?
Ooh.
So I thought this would be a good opportunity for me to learn, but to also have my own space. Now, if you've ever worked night shift or a swing shift, you know that the day shift is typically a little bit more rigorous, a little less loose. and you don't have the autonomy during the day to be flexible where you do is night.
Yeah, you have more
So
meetings and leadership is everywhere.
yes,
Yep.
yes. And so this position had a swing shift kind of mentality. And
Awesome.
you'd come in during the day, you'd catch a little bit of, leadership and organizational meetings and stuff that you need to know, but then they leave and it's your show, which worked great for me. I thought being flexible in my hours, as well as being honest with myself about knowledge of HR in the civilian sector, could push myself into knowing what this meant in the long run. And it did. It really
Yeah.
worked for me. No one wanted the position, and I know you've dealt with this. Not every position at every level is desirable,
No.
and the
No.
least desirable positions stay vacant the longest.
Yep.
And this position was vacant for months, and I took that as a calling card. I really did. And I
Wow.
said, you know what? I'm just gonna be humble, take what I can get now, and then it'll pay off in the future. And it did.
Yeah.
It paid off in droves.
Lots of stuff to unpack there. And I love it because, obviously you and I haven't been in contact much throughout our, 20 some odd years in the Air Force. But I always thought that we had a really good, banter between us, and it was cool to learn from you. And now we really took similar paths. And so a couple of things that I hear from you, I love the fact that you took TAP twice. There's a lot of, negative, you know, dialogue out there about TAP, but TAP prepares you,
Yes.
for the logistics of your transition. It's not going to prepare you mentally. That's
Right.
not the purpose. The purpose is to prepare you to learn a basic resume, which, if you think about the Department of Labor resume that they provide you in the book and the template, if everyone would just start using that template, our lives as human resources, professionals would be a lot easier. Just to say, people
Yes.
tell me all the time that TAP doesn't prepare you. BS. Yes, it does. Use the Department of Labor stuff. Department of Labor. Okay, but anyway,
Yes.
so you went to TAP twice. I could get on
Yes.
a huge soapbox about that. You went to
I
TAP
love it.
twice. Love it, right? Because yeah, like TAP is there. Is it perfect? Absolutely. But let me just tell you, it is good enough. It is
It
good
is.
enough. And if you go in with an optimistic mindset and versus what is it not providing, but instead of what am I going to learn? And then what can I, maybe share with other people, then you'll get a lot out of TAP. The goal is not to 100% transform you into a civilian. It's to help you transition. Transitioning and transformation are two totally different things. Another thing that I heard in there that is very similar to what I did is, look at the possibility of the fact that human resources is very different than what it is in the military, right? We have
Yes.
different
Yes.
language, we have different laws, we have different categories, and depending on the organization will honestly determine what HR looks like. So you decided to maybe look at lesser positions to decrease the barrier to entry, and then you even looked at positions that maybe went sort of vacant for a long time, and look at how you fill the gap. So how did you prepare to get there, as far as what does your education look like? Do you have any certifications? I will tell you from my experience, I would be up a creek without a paddle if I did not have a bachelor's, because unfortunately we still require bachelor degrees, and not every organization discounts experience, but in order to keep hiring practices fair and consistent, degrees are where it's at. So how did you prepare, as far as education and certifications?
Sure, yeah. And through the military, I did do, my CCF in HR, as well as a bachelor's through Wayland University in HR. One thing that I didn't do, and I wish people knew about this earlier on in their career, is all the human resource certifications you can take. And I know you
Yes.
have developed one, and I think that's a great jumping off point, right? It'll help with any type of language transition that you're going to have, because that's going to be your biggest barrier.
Yes.
Being a personnelist in the Air Force, realize it or not, is an entry level HR position at the very, very least. right?
Yep.
You're going to deal with a lot of different things. And if you're a personalist that becomes a first sergeant, then good on you. Do yourself a favor, get your certifications. Right now, the company that I'm working for provides a tuition assistance for like the SHRM CP, for
Yes.
things like this. So if you find yourself with a little bit of time, or you can find a school that offers this, then look into SkillBridge and see if that school will have an HR sort of certification, or Vets2PM.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah,
Okay.
I think you hit on one thing: is education is gold in the civilian sector. It
Yeah,
really
it
is.
is.
I mean, I don't know how many times you look on Glassdoor, and for people who do not know what Glassdoor is, it's a Yelp for businesses basically.
Yep.
But you will see management doesn't have a degree in this. They don't have an HR program, and you'll see complaints about things that they consider to be valuable. Now, is it necessarily valuable? No, I think knowledge and experience may, I mean, this is my opinion,
Yep.
may outweigh some of that. But that paper says that you will be dedicated to a position. You will have learned what you need to learn for the position. So, absolutely. What I've done other than that
Yep.
is joined a human resource society. There are plenty of human resource societies out there. Grab
Yep.
yourself Google, type in human resource associations, and those places like Vets2PM offer certifications, but they also offer a network of people in the career field. Um,
Absolutely.
you can get on message boards, ask those
Yep.
questions, find yourself a mentor, find yourself someone you can lean on, and more often than not, they will know job vacancies.
Yeah. And they know people. And so, I mean, it is who you know. A lot of it is all about networking and who you know. So, you got your degree, and Kevin and I are not saying that experience is not as good as having a degree, but in the civilian sector, degrees are one way to objectively evaluate talent. And when it comes to labor laws, and it comes to litigations, and it just comes to protecting the rights of the company and the employees, a degree is a great place to start. Then we ask for experience. Then you see, so we have basic and preferred requirements, but until you're in the civilian sector, it's easy to say, well, we shouldn't have this and we shouldn't have that. When the first time that you have to go and be a witness for a litigation, or you have to provide all of your text messaging and your emails and whatever for a litigation, let me just tell you, you'll be grateful that we have objective requirements, right,
That's
Kevin? It's like,
correct.
oh my goodness. Um, so that's
I
awesome.
do.
Yeah. And, when it comes to, especially now, like people that are thinking about, separating or retiring, if human resources is something that you think that you're interested in, join a professional human resource organization, try to achieve a certification. There's a lot of negative conversation out there about certifications like PMP and HR and whatever it may be. Will certifications guarantee you a job? Absolutely not. But certifications provide you competence, which will provide you confidence. And that is what us people who are leaving the military, especially us, we grew up in the military, our formative years in the military, right? Our whole personalities, our whole lives really revolved around the military. We need competence and we need confidence. And that's what certifications do. What about your DoD skill bridge? So, I did a DoD skill bridge program for HR. It's actually where I realized, like, yep, this is exactly what I want to do in the civilian sector. So tell us a little bit about your skill bridge.
So I'm a little unique. I stepped outside of the box and didn't have HR in mind at all. I
Yep.
really wanted to do something innovative, creative, and that's always kind of been my desire. Um, I entered this program. Well, first of all, I was looking for HR positions, right, for SkillBridge. There were some availabilities, and I'm gonna say
Yeah,
the
same.
recruitment that I ran into to get an HR position for SkillBridge wasn't the greatest. I'm not a big fan of a fire and forget, or you didn't get this because, things that come full circle is everything in HR for me. Communication is everything in HR for me. But for SkillBridge, I did apply for some human resource positions in the local area and wasn't getting what I needed, basically. I wasn't hearing back. I was made to feel like I was bothering if I was checking up, monthly, not even weekly. So I took it upon myself to say, hey, you know what? Let's learn a different trade. So I jumped into what I thought was app development. And I really was like, you know what? Let me get in the space of creating an app. I have so many ideas. And as fate would have it, that course was filled. I couldn't complete it. I didn't get accepted for that skill bridge, but was pushed into this other direction. Talked to Dr. Brian Rayshap, who, if you don't know who he is and you're in Albuquerque, he's the guy responsible for Albuquerque becoming a smart city. Um, and he really talked me into doing this. And what that means is we create devices to make life easier. Okay, and
Yeah.
we manufacture that. You go into this course, and it is very stressful. It's 8 hours of learning a different language, right? We learned C++ coding, and you had projects you worked on that were due out, and you would have to create something into, nothing into something tangible. Uh, One of the
Which
first
basically
things.
describes HR, just so everyone understands.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that's hilarious. It does.
Yeah.
It aligns with it. So one of the first things we did was to create a self-watering flower pot,
Oh, wow.
and a IoT device for children, which I landed up making this big Thor hammer that has all these different sensors on it, and an app you can download on your phone, and your kids can look at that app and play with it, turn the lights on, turn the MP3 player on, that type of stuff. Um, so I did that for 8 weeks. I was a old man in a young field. The boot camp had several engineers from different universities around New
Yeah.
Mexico. In fact, we had to create a steering wheel using sensors instead of using mechanics and turning the wheel with the steering. No, it's the steering wheel turns, it senses it's turning, and it turns the wheels, right? And one of the projects while doing that was to come up with a couple sine wave formulas using
Oh,
trigonometry,
yeah.
which is not
No.
in my field at all. So I felt kind of dumb doing that, but these young engineers stepped to the plate and helped me out. And little did I know that this would help me in the HR career field.
Yeah. So before we press record, that's exactly what I was thinking of. SkillBridge, the DoD SkillBridge program, first of all, is a great program if utilized effectively, right? Utilized effectively by the member and then utilized effectively by the employer. There's lots of different programs out there, cohorts or internships or residencies. And the goal of the DoD SkillBridge program is to bridge the gap, right? Bridge the gap between what you know and what you want to learn. And hopefully it can be a marriage, of this skill set that's going to help you in the civilian sector. So, my skill bridge was in human resources and I learned all about recruiting. That's actually where I decided I definitely want to be a recruiter, and I ended up never being one, like a full-on recruiter. But my skill bridge was specifically in HR, yours not, but
Right.
you just recently introduced a new human resource information system into your organization. So tell us how that skill bridge set you up for success, a year or two later.
Well, it's funny how it happened. The company is a baking manufacturing company, but they laud themselves on technology and automation and stuff like that. I had my daughter coming in this past summer, and there was a summit at their headquarters in Toronto, and I could not make it. Um, the CEOs were in a meeting and they were talking about the future of their technology and how they wanted to get these systems together. And they had asked a simple question, and I thought I was going to be in trouble. And I would not recommend doing this to anybody getting in the career field, but I did something. They asked the question, who here uses ChatGPT, right? And nobody's hands was going up. Nobody.
What? You know, everybody in
Yes.
that audience uses
No,
it.
I'm telling you, people were scared to admit that they were using this AI function or this technology. Now, it comes with parameters, and you want to make sure that you're fact checking what it's giving you and all that type of
Yeah.
stuff. But no one would admit to using it. And in fact, no one was using it. The CEOs, their two brothers, they were asking the question why, because
Yeah.
they used it.
Yeah.
They used Power AI, and they used it to answer their emails and to come up with agendas and a myriad of the other things that you can, deal with. And I did have a person there from San Antonio raise their hand and said, Kevin Flores uses ChatGPT. She knew I did. And so she outed me in front of everybody. And so it was kind of like, well, who is this guy? We need to call him and learn how to do. And so I had the director of HR for America, who works in an office next to
Yeah.
us, call me in the office and close the door. And I'm in, you get that feeling like I'm in trouble. I'm in
Yeah.
the principal's office.
Nothing good comes out of closed doors.
No, never. And he says,
Not in
now
HR anyway. Just kidding.
he says, is it true that you use ChatGPT? And I just, I probably was like red in the face
Yeah.
and I just admitted, yes, I do use ChatGPT. And then his next question was, why didn't you tell us? And how amazing is this? And gushed
Oh,
about it. And yeah, and so um, this led into my experience with IoT and coding
yep.
and stuff like that, and said, hey, we have this project we're working on. I understand that you've done process mapping and you understand the causality and how to get things to manipulate and work in a different way that you want to for HR systems. And oh, by the way, you understand HR. So how could this work for us? Type of stuff. And so I was brought into the fold.
Yeah.
And when you have that mindset of how coding works, you can understand the kind of like borderlines you're dealing with.
Yep.
Can you do this? And if you
Yep.
can do this, how do you get this to work with this without affecting this? And so I was in plenty of meetings discussing how situations affect each other, like PTO, how that affects your pay and promotion, how that's going to affect performance reviews, and all this type of stuff is going to lead into a situation where we have facial recognition to clock
Yeah.
in, and yeah, so it's all these different things. I got to take my skill bridge knowledge and push it forward and be an asset to the company with regards to HR. Now, did we get everything we wanted? No.
No.
However, it is on the docket to be refined.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
it's
And
great.
also what I hear too, I hear a little bit of project management as well. So I always have to plug
Yes.
project management, right? So as human resource professionals, you may not be a project manager by your title, but especially when progress in the human resource business partner arena, or, even data analysis and stuff like that. I mean, you're always doing some sort of project. So project management is a skill set. So it's awesome actually just to hear everything that at Vets2PM and then just myself that I preach. It's awesome to kind of see it in action. Like, this is not just stuff we're talking about. This is real life.
Yes.
So prior to you retiring from the military, you went ahead and got your community college of the Air Force degree. You got your, bachelor's degree. And then, you did a DoD skill bridge program. You took TAP seriously. What can I get out of it? And then let's talk about translating your skill set. And so this is the number one question that we filter all the time. Hey,
Okay.
Misty, I've never done HR, but how can I translate my HR skill set? And one thing I always preach, especially people that retire as senior NCOs or officers, you have a human resources skill set that you can leverage, and you have a project management skill set that you can leverage.
Yes.
Now, you may need some certifications to back it up in order to build that confidence, so you're confident. But when it comes to human resources and project management, we can translate that skill set. So what are some tips and tools that you have, or what did you do?
1,000%. I took a course when I got in the position of a talent advisor, and this was the mid shift. I took a course about presentation and conducting meetings. And what I got through that was an opportunity to compare federal HR and civilian sector HR. Um, and what I found was when you're looking at law and you're looking at state and city ordinances, regulations, uh, you're basically looking at UCMJ, you're looking at DODI, you're
Yeah,
looking at AFMAN, you're looking at AFI.
look at you.
And
Yep.
I think there was something like 20,000 Air Force, DOD, whatever you want, instructions. And you have maybe 9 sets of really stringent laws, like whether it be
Yep.
Family Medical Leave or American Disabilities Act. I got in this course and I got to compare the two, and I came to the realization that a lot of it is similar.
Yep.
It's just vast in the military. It really is, and it's acute, and it's really distilled down to certain things and aspects. And sometimes your HR department is 10 people at the most, and you have to, do this for thousands of people. And so you wear these hats. Um, that's one of the biggest things I got to do, and I got to present that to my folks, and had the realization that people don't really understand what HR is unless you're working HR, or you're
Yeah.
not, or your HR people are not educating and communicating either upward or downward. And so by doing that, I took the opportunity to meet in every huddle, in every nook and cranny I could find within the manufacturing company, and educate people on what this is and what we do, whether it be one little thing about diversity and inclusion, or whether we're talking about change management and having a whole different system and how to embrace change. Yeah, it's interesting to see the kind of cross pollination HR people and project managers have, and the education that they don't have about it. One thing, I don't know if you felt like this as an HR person in your career, but recruitment is one thing. Retention is not an HR function. And I
No,
always said this. It's not.
no.
And
And
it's
just
looked
for
like
the
it.
record,
Yes.
HR doesn't hire and we don't fire.
Fire.
We assist and we recommend. And we
Absolutely.
don't retain. We don't retain. So,
Yes.
I mean, people leave organizations because of managers, not because of HR. And a lot of people that have, you know, I would say a negative opinion about HR, which some of it is super valid, but a lot of it is based on these assumptions that HR gets to do X, Y, Z. I mean,
Yes.
truth be told, HR probably has the least amount of power in the entire organization, but we have
Yes.
such a huge expectation levied upon us, and I would say, that's a transferable skill as well. I mean, I think a lot of us senior NCOs probably have all these expectations levied upon us that, that we can't really meet as well. So yeah, we're not part of retention, but go ahead.
We're not. No, I always kind of come to the fact that we provide a course of action.
Yep.
We can advise. We can, and at the very smallest, or at the tiniest level, what I tell I guess day labor type of individuals is, look at me as someone who's asking you, how can I help you help the company help yourself, or how can I help you get to the best position you could be on the floor and not have to worry about anything else, even if it's in your life. We
Yeah.
have, and we do this in the military all the time. Airmen do this when we see wingmen. It's a culture of pointing someone in the right direction.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
is, and just
It absolutely
being
is.
knowledgeable about that situation and instance, and being empathetic towards your fellow human being. And sometimes it's just lending that ear and hearing something and validating their feeling.
Yeah. And when it comes to HR, I mean, I will definitely say if you are thinking about, hey, this is what I would like to do in the civilian sector because of this skill set, and this is what I think I want to do. Like, let's just be clear. Just because you like people doesn't mean that you would be an effective HR professional.
That's
If
correct.
people at all are a pain point for you, and I say it this way, like, if you are not okay, like mentally okay, dealing with people's BS, drama, complaints, or highs, lows, death. I mean, in our career field in the military, we did casualty reporting. We were on the casualty reporting team together, I think,
Right.
with
Right. We
Martin
were.
Patterson. And our
Yes.
wartime function was casualty reporting as well. Like, we do that in HR too. We do that in HR. Like, when someone dies in the company, unfortunately, we're usually the first ones that are like, okay, what benefits do they have? Let's get these,
Right.
let's get these going, and then we have to prepare like employee engagement and stuff like that. There's so many different things that HR does. But we have very little authority when it comes to doing it, right?
That's true. That's true. And I think as a transitioning person going into project management and HR, I think it would be wise to kind of curb your enthusiasm towards those things.
I love
I think
that.
I
Yeah.
think it's okay to take the back seat because in the military, you will get a project and you will run it through a wall and you will be the best at doing it in the world, right? And that's your mindset. But when you're in the civilian sector, it may not be a priority for the company. And you may
Yeah.
have all the ideas in the world to make it better. Just curb your enthusiasm, be patient, it will come. And if it doesn't, fine, be okay with it.
Yeah. And I think this is a really good time to, both you and I, we've been out less than 4 years. So, I do believe that what we share now is still relevant. Probably in a couple more years, it won't be relevant anymore. But the people ask me a lot, like, what is your biggest disappointment when it comes to retiring from the
Mm,
military? And I
wow.
always say it's my expectations, because I assumed that I would have more work-life balance just because I retired. I
Hmm.
assumed that I would go to the doctor more just because I retired. I assumed that I would be involved in my husband and my kids' life just because I retired. But truth of the matter is that I'm still Misty. And I still don't go to the doctor because I still think work is more important than doing that. Or, like, I'm just a workaholic by trade, slowly but surely sort of getting out of that. But that was my biggest disappointments, my expectations. And so I shared that because regardless of what career field you go into, whether it's human resources, project management, IT, whatever, like the civilian sector, the people that are working there, they don't have work-life balance. They don't always go to their kids' events. They don't always, uh, go to the doctors or whatever, take care of themselves. People still go in early, they stay late, they work weekends,
Yep.
and you're still working with people that maybe are unorganized, or you're working with people that are super educated. Or, I mean, the military and the civilian sector, the only thing that's different is that we sign a contract that says we'll die for our country. But a lot of these civilian employees are traveling 50 to 75% of the time, or they're relocating in order to take a different position, right? Maybe a higher position. I just don't think that there's that many differences. And so when I talk to veterans, I always want to say, like, you have to outline what it is you want from your post-service life, and take it 1 year at a time, because I guarantee you that it's going to change as you change, right? Because we're talking about the military transition now. And I would like to actually ask you this question. I always say military transition and military transformation. Transformation is the mental piece. I'm taking off my uniform. I'm not defined by my chevrons on my sleeve. I don't have this automatic credibility walking in. When I walked in as a senior, in the military, like, people would stand up, and people
Right.
didn't ask me if I belonged here because they saw it, right? Same thing
Yeah.
with you. So tell me a little bit about your transformation, especially when you started that shift, job, and you were like, oh, okay, this is where, I mean, probably very lower than what you're used to, right? As far as the military equivalent. So talk about your transformation.
So mentally, I was patient when I first got into the
Mm,
seat, and I was anxious to learn, but I kind of held back. I didn't necessarily ask the tough questions that I would ask today,
yeah.
only because I was not as confident as you would say for the position. But what I did do is find my niche, and what it helped me do is figure out what my weakness was and what my strengths were, and I leaned in very heavily on my strength, and it landed up being probably the best case scenario for me in the position. Uh, my last position in the military was a senior enlisted leader for an FSS, right? Um, I did that in lieu of a chief not being in the position, so I got a lot of face time. I got a lot of hard decision making, and a lot, and it was crazy because it was during COVID, right? And
Oh,
FSS absolutely not shutting down during
gosh.
COVID, right? So it was
Yeah.
it was like perfect storm. What I found out was listening to people and having those discussions with the right people in the room meant everything.
Yeah.
I landed up being on a manufacturing floor with, and it's so interesting. I was in a meeting, and the bulk of individuals that are working at this manufacturing plant are uh, people coming out of high school, people coming into the United States as a first
Yeah.
kind of
Yep.
immigration. Um, and I found it really interesting that they were using the word unskilled labor, and it
Yeah.
really hurt me to the core.
Yeah. Same.
Having having to sit there and watch these people lift 100-pound bags of flour, 12-hour shifts, 20-minute breaks for an hour. I couldn't do it. That's a skill unto
Oh,
itself.
yeah.
Like even mentally, I had to stand up and say the hard thing, which is we're not using that anymore. And I wasn't in a position to say that, but as an HR person,
Yeah.
I had to be like, I don't think a whole lot of us in here could do the job that they're doing in there. So first and foremost, they're not unskilled. Let's call them something different, right? They're manufacturers. Let's just
Yeah.
use that term.
Yep. Production
But
floor. Like that's, I would
exactly,
always say that production floor workers. And before you discount, what they do and how they do it, like I always, I would never ever like say anything negative about what they do and how they do it, whatever, because I can tell you right now, I'm not standing for 12 hours.
thank you,
Nope. I'm
thank
not
you.
standing for 12 hours. I'm not dealing with the work conditions that sometimes you have to face. It's just intrinsic to the job, right? When it comes to manufacturing. I mean,
Yeah,
I complain about my wrist hurting a lot because I'm typing. Seriously,
right,
Misty?
right.
Seriously?
No, I absolutely.
Like, it's like they're lifting, like I worked at a tire manufacturing company, very similar to, bales of flour. It's like they're lifting these 80 to 150-pound tires, like over
Yeah,
and over and over again. They're not unskilled.
they're not unskilled,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I said that to say that in my niche, like what I found my strength was employment engagement, and
Yeah. I could see that.
uh, they work on a lot on what they consider to be leadership, and in the military, I think it's a bit more nuanced than what they have in this company. But we don't focus a lot on followership. And so when you have a lot of people who are followers not understand what leadership is and what it looks like, there's a lot of misconceptions of what it could be.
Yeah.
And so that creates kind of a team, like, good old boys scenario, maybe. But what I ended up doing is implementing like mediated discussions rather than immediately jumping into progressive discipline or something that would demean the worker, and it worked. It worked
Yeah.
amazingly. So I was able to see, well, like, my weak area was obviously like FMLA
Yep.
and disability stuff and stuff that I wasn't going to work with unless I jumped into that anyway. But I used that opportunity to learn from that and then lean on what I could do and make an impact that way. So
Yeah.
it really is just being honest with yourself.
No, that's awesome. And, what part of the transformation, the mental piece, like when you take the uniform off, you really, you had a mentor that said, just be yourself. And like, you know, that's why when I went into my interview, like I said shit twice. Like I cursed in the interview just to see, yeah, just to see how they would react because, for 20 some odd years, I always had to like hold back my mouth because, I
Yeah.
worked in HR in the military and personnel and we don't curse, right? But
Right.
I just wanted to see, I just wanted to be myself. You know, and then I remember that the HR manager, she said, she wasn't the HR manager at the time when she hired me, but she was the business partner, like the senior business partner. And so she sat in on the interview, and a year later, she said, "You're exactly who we thought we hired. You're sassy, you're feisty, but you're also, you research, you don't just sit back, whatever it may be." And I think part of the transformation is just owning who you are. Sometimes in the military, you do have to be a bit different, right? And that's in every job. But for me, one of my non-negotiables for my post-service career was just to be able to be me and not compromise too much. And it seems like, by owning who you are and what you're really good at, your employee relations, I can see that in a second. And I knew that when I met you 20 some odd years ago, you were always, getting the office together, especially when, you know, Sergeant Wagner left, you were always organizing things in the dorms and whatever it may be. So I could just see how that was your niche. And that does help us transform because it's a crazy life out here. It's a
It
crazy
is.
life in the
It
civilian
is.
sector. That's awesome. All right. So as we close out, I just want to highlight some things that seem to be a huge trend on this podcast. But you were talking about, you did the work prior to getting out of the military. You identified, hey, let me get an education, let me take advantage of these opportunities here. You networked, you had a lot of good mentors, you looked at job postings, you did a skill bridge, you went into a position that maybe was not as equivalent as your military position, but you did to get your feet wet, and then look at you now. So what
Yeah.
are some maybe last tips that you would like to leave the audience with before I ask you some good questions?
Okay. I would say failure is inevitable.
Yeah.
Embrace it. Embrace it, learn from it, and be okay with it. It turned out to not be as stressful as you thought it was. We tend to ruminate and think about the unknown.
Yep.
If you can curb that, curb that. Find your whatever it is, your peace. For me, it's walking and working out. Lean heavily into that and just know that things are going to work out. Rely on your strengths, do your homework, and know that the first opportunity you have at planning may go out the window, and that's okay. Be flexible, be resilient, and rely on everything you've learned because you've been through a lot
Yeah.
and you know a lot.
Yeah.
Be
So good.
unapologetically yourself.
Yeah, it's so good. And I believe that, that's a great place to really just try to emphasize to the military, community, like be yourself. You can be yourself. You can be yourself, and
Yes.
if you don't get the job because you were yourself, then that closed door is a blessing. Sometimes
Yeah.
blessings come disguised as ugly packages, right? And I always tell people, hey, like focus on what you can control, and if you don't get the call back, the universe is protecting you. If you don't, if you're not offered the job, the universe is protecting you. In some way, shape, or form, the universe is protecting you to make sure that you served your country. And so now it's time for your country to serve you and not, you know what I mean by that? Like you've done a huge service to the nation. So now it's time to take care of you and start thinking about you.
Absolutely.
So be who you are and let the opportunities come. So Kevin, it's so great to
Yes.
talk to you. I do have some last questions that I always ask my guests, but I just want to
Okay.
say I always talk about F.E. Warren, even though Cheyenne, Wyoming, I was only there for a year and a half before I got married to my first husband.
Yay.
But that, that's a blessing in a ugly package too, right? Because now I've been married for 18 years to my second husband, who's like,
Amazing.
the best
Yes.
person in the whole world. And I have a 17-year-old, but a bulk of my memories revolve around you, the basketball court, and just your craziness in the office. So my first duty station was by far like the one place that shaped what I thought the military, should be like. I mean, I had such supportive leadership, such supportive peers. Like I was an A1C, you were senior airman, but at that time, like senior airmen were a big deal in the Air Force. And I just remember you always made me smile. Or I'd look over at the desk and be like, what is he doing now? Just shenanigans. So it's just awesome that this is full circle and just a testament to network and, collaborating with those that helped you along the way. So I just wanted to personally thank you for that.
And thank you. It was an
Yeah.
amazing time. I loved, we have a lot of really good memories. Some we can
Yeah.
say, some we cannot say.
Yeah.
But great times all together. I think that was really my dust settling moment in the Air Force. It's
Yeah.
you've been in your career. I mean, you were just kind of hot out tech school, but I had been there for a year and
Yeah. Because
knew what it was.
that was not your first duty station,
No, it
right?
was.
It
It
was.
was.
Okay. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
it's
then
crazy how things shape us, right? But look at us now. Like, I'll be honest with you, I never would have thought that, based on some things that I remember, I never would have thought that you would have stayed in. So it's
right.
cool. Yeah, it's really cool to see this, and just proof that, the right people, if you are truly yourself, the right people will support you, and look at where you're at now. So that's awesome. All right, so let's leave our veteran community one piece of advice that has helped you in your life. What's one piece of advice that has helped you in your life?
Um, it's one that I recently grasped, and it is value perspective and try to shut down perception.
Well, that's such
I
an
always
HR thing.
It is,
Such a
it
change
is.
management strategy thing.
But
Yes.
I run this scenario through my with my daughter a lot, and it's randomly, and the response is usually different. And I always say, you're in an arena full of thousands of people, right? And you need to get to the restroom. Now you realize when you look around that no one's looking at you and focusing on you. And this is how the world works,
Yeah.
right? So everybody in that arena is the main character in their own movie, and you're the main character in your movie. How do you navigate to get to the restroom? And walk me through that. And I think that provides the opportunity to notice your surroundings.
Yeah.
You can listen to people, what they're doing. You can look at their mannerisms, understand how they're reacting to the situation around them, and how you can use your ability to get where you need to be. And so I often think about that whenever I'm in a rut, whenever I'm feeling self-loathing or like sorry for myself, or a feeling of fear or anxiety. How am I going to navigate through this, and what are the people around me doing? And I think you can gain perspective that way and remove the self-perception, which is the fear and the I'm not good enough type of
Yep.
thing. So if you can grasp that concept, I think you can do pretty well.
Yeah, that's good. And everyone brings a unique value add. We call it UVA in Vets2PM. Like everyone has a unique value add. Like how you get to the restroom will be different than how other people get to the restroom. But
1000%.
you know what I mean? But we still all get to the restroom. So as long as we're doing it legally, ethically, and morally, we're still
Morally.
all getting to the restroom. So it's very similar to the military transition. We're not lucky we took action,
Oh, I
right?
love that.
Yeah, we're not lucky we took
Beautiful.
action. And so someone called me lucky the other day, and I was like, don't you dare discount what I did by
That's
saying that this is luck. Now, if you're thinking that I created my luck because I took action, I paid attention to my mentors, and I made sure that, shit was happening, then fine, I will own that I'm lucky. But we're
yeah.
not lucky. We haven't had a smooth and successful transition because, we knew the right people. We took action, and we know that
Yeah.
networking is a part of that equation, right? So
Sure.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Is there any book or podcast that you would recommend to the veteran community or anyone that maybe, has helped you throughout this journey?
There are. I've been lucky enough to read like The Founder's Mentality, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F is
Yes.
another one. In fact, I gave
Yes.
that to everybody who participated in my retirement. Got a copy of that book because it's near and dear to my heart. And it's really something that I've grasped on and kind of like can identify with and ran. But I think the biggest book I would have to say that anyone needs to, and they adapted it into a Apple TV short film, is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, the Horse.
Oh, yes.
And
Oh,
it
yes.
is a children's book, but more than children's book. It's
Oh, yeah.
introspective and profound. And it's a good thing to just keep on your desk, keep in your desk, and when you have a moment to kind of like decompress, open it to a page and you will find something of value. And it's a short children's book. I read it to my daughter. She reads it to me. Beautiful book. And I find it works out in just about any situation.
Yeah, you're
But
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
great
And
book.
then last question, is there any sort of habit that moves the needle forward for you that you commit to every single day?
Absolutely. Listening's a big one.
Mm.
I will bring people in who don't look like themselves that day, and I find that to be probably the best part of my day. More often than not, I'll sit them down and ask the questions. What's going on today?
Yeah.
And I won't pry. And it's I've gotten to the point where people don't look at HR as oh man, I'm in trouble. I gotta go talk to them about something, right?
Yeah.
It's more of an engagement thing. People want to talk to me when they see me, and I love that. And so
Yes.
listening
Yep.
is my thing. I don't care what they have to talk about. Just tell me, get it off your chest. And if you don't have to get anything off your chest, cool. How's it going?
That's
So
awesome.
that's a big habit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, Kevin, it's so great to talk to you and so good to see you like truly excel, in the civilian sector. You're a blessing to the HR community. So where can people find you? Can people connect with you or can they reach out to
People can
you?
absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn, and it's my name, Kevin_Flores. So it's LinkedIn at Kevin_Flores. You can find me right now in Colorado.
In a hair salon?
In a hair salon, my mom's hair salon. Or you can reach out to me through Gmail. I'll give that to everybody. It's KevDFlores with an S at gmail.com. And I would love to hear from any transitioning veteran or anybody that just wants to talk HR. Look me
Awesome.
up. I'm available.
Well, thank you for feeding into the veteran community. It's so great to connect with you and until next
Likewise.
time. So
Thanks for having me, Misty.
yeah, I really appreciate talking to you. I could talk to you forever. So it's my cheeks physically hurt, just to let you know, because I'm just thinking back to like those days in that office and just the shenanigans that took place. And it's just such a good memory. It's just such a good memory. So you're a part
It
of
is.
my military family. And now I'm so blessed that, we're connected this way too. So, all right. Well, thanks for joining the Military Transition Academy podcast. Until next time.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Military Transition Podcast, Human Resources Pathfinder Series. I hope you found our discussion with Kevin Flores insightful and inspiring. Kevin's military transition journey is a good example of how valuable veterans are to an organization. If you found today's episode helpful, please share it with your fellow veterans and friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode filled with more HR tips, tools, and career advice tailored for the veteran community. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, feedback, or topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out to us. You can connect with me, Misty Moreno, on LinkedIn, or visit our website at Vets2PM.com for more resources and support. Until next time, stay motivated, stay focused, and remember that your military experience is a powerful asset in the civilian workforce. Keep pushing forward on your career path, and we'll be here to guide you every step of the way. Take care and talk to you soon.